Center in Orlando for the last month. According to him, almost daily, prepping for the August 2nd match taking place in New Jersey. He and Randy Orton facing off against influencer-turned-wrestler Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre. We asked people who they think will win. All right, and so the answers were mixed.
Of course I'm going to say Jelly Roll because I don't like Logan Paul.
Probably Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul would be my guess.
Why would that be?
I don't think Jelly Roll's much of a wrestler.
But he's here training, so you never know. SummerSlam is August 2nd and 3rd at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. But I hear he's training like a maniac, like literally.
That's good. You have to.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I mean, that's the thing with WWE, right? Not all of it is real.
What?
So you can, like, I'm sure that they're teaching him things that he can use to, like, you know.
Yeah.
You got to be able to take a hit with a chair over your head or something like that.
So
to
stay
show
safe,
you
Jelly
guys
Roll.
some video. I actually went to wrestling school.
You did?
I did.
What?
I was in the ring. I did a story on it. It was really fun.
Oh, I got to see
I
that.
had a great
We're going to be
time.
playing that clip. I
was able to let out some
to see
aggression.
that.
It was a lot of fun.
Don't forget, tomorrow we'll be live for Good Day Orlando Extra in Claremont. We hope you'll stop by and see us.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Good morning to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer and thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning live on Fox Local and on YouTube. I want to let you know some of what we have ahead of us here on the show this morning. We've got a lot to cover here, including give you a live look as we anticipate a news conference beginning in Tampa here momentarily. Talk more about that in just a minute. A Florida mother speaking at a White House bill signing yesterday as President Trump signed the Halt Fentanyl Act. We heard from Jackie Siegel, who is known as the Queen of Versailles. She is the husband, or she's the wife, rather, of the late founder of Westgate Resorts, David Siegel. They are the founders of the Victoria's Voice Foundation after losing their daughter to an overdose. She spoke at the White House for this, in favor of this bill that is now law. To permanently classify fentanyl-related substances as a Schedule I drug. We'll have more on that coming up later in the show. Governor Ron DeSantis in Orlando this morning, speaking at the Teacher of the Year event at Rose and Shingle Creek just a little bit ago. We will hear from him coming up in a little bit. We are also tracking these Good Trouble Lives On events, rallies, demonstrations across not just our region, not just the state of Florida, but really all across the country today. on this 5-year anniversary of the death of civil rights leader and former Congressman John Lewis. So a number of folks trying to remember him and his legacy, and also push back against the Trump administration as well. So we will speak with one of the organizers of one of those events in our area coming up in a little bit. But we are standing by again for that news conference in Tampa. Let me go ahead and give you a live look here where we anticipate seeing Dr. Joseph Ladapo, the Florida Surgeon General, come out and speak any minute now about updated, in fact, there he is, talking about updated federal recommendations for healthy children regarding COVID-19 vaccines using mRNA technology. This is something that the federal guidance recently changed. Let's go ahead and listen into Dr. Ladapo and hear what he has to say.
Okay, great. All right, good morning, everyone. So first, I want to thank you all for being here today. And I want to also thank our speakers who've come to join us, Dr. Pierre Corey, Dr. Joel Walskog. So Dr. Pierre Corey, who is a fantastic critical care physician, I got to know him early during the pandemic. He was, very notably, back when people were first getting critically ill and in the ICU, Dr. Corey gave testimony at the Senate or the House, I can't remember which, and said that he was taking care of these patients and they were doing better with steroids. And Dr. Corey was, sort of ridiculed, and he received a lot of pushback for what he was saying. Months later, in fact, the randomized clinical trials showed that Dr. Corey was exactly correct, and steroid therapy for people who were intubated, people who had hypoxia with COVID-19 became the standard of care. Just a fantastic physician. Dr. Walskog, today is my first day meeting him, and he is a leader in a group called React 19. React 19 is a group that tends to the needs of the vaccine injured. Right now, there's a tragedy going on in the background, and that tragedy is that first, a product was designed too rapidly without sufficient testing, and that is the mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. Second, that product was pushed out, often forced out, and distributed with coercion to so many millions, tens of millions of people in this country and millions of people around the world, to the tune of billions of people in total. And finally, when people were injured by that inadequately tested product, the ability to study their injuries, the ability to help them, which is what is needed when you've got to be able to collect data on patients, you've got to allow physicians to test different treatments, you've got to allow physicians to be able to communicate with one another in a very open manner, and to be able to communicate with patients in a very open manner. All of that was demolished. So terrible things happened, and even the ability to rectify those terrible things was not made possible because of the infrastructure that we saw for communication, for clinical care, for even patient interaction and connection with social media, censorship, and things like that. So it's a terrible crime. It's still happening. It's happening in the background. And Dr. Joel Walskog has done a tremendous amount with his organization, React 19, and other courageous individuals who have been directly injured by mRNA COVID-19 vaccines and other types of COVID-19 vaccines. And so I'm really pleased that he's here too. So, when we talked about having an event today, really what's inspired this discussion first was finally seeing the federal government making I would say a position, a statement that is a Florida-esque statement. And the characteristic of Florida-esque statements is that we tend to make these statements months, if not years, before other people. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he's a good friend of mine. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, also someone who's a good friend of mine. And, I was really happy to hear Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's the Secretary of Health and Human Services, make an announcement saying that, well, guys, we're no longer going to recommend or promote mRNA COVID-19 vaccines for healthy children. And some of the people here may remember when, thankfully, thanks to the courage and the willingness to do what is right, irrespective of whether it's popular, of Governor Ron DeSantis, we made that same announcement 3 years ago, I think, in South Florida, in Miami. And so we were happy to see the federal government doing that. And it's important to acknowledge that, Florida, certainly over the last few years, for many reasons, but in the health arena, particularly as it relates to medical freedoms and COVID-19, we've been in the news a lot, and we've taken a lot of heat. And, we've taken a lot of heat from the mainstream media. Ironically, during all this time, the people have been aligned with us. So more and more people have really moved from the position of buying into the things that we hear from the federal government into, frankly, agreeing, whether explicitly or implicitly, with what we've said in Florida. Very fortunately, very few people, very few children, and very few adults are putting these mRNA COVID-19 vaccines in their bodies. We still have older people doing it, but fewer people who are older are doing it also. And they shouldn't be doing it because they are not fit for human use. When was the last time that you had a vaccine that literally almost every single person knows someone who's had a bad reaction for them? Okay, I've been a physician with my MD since 2011, and I've taken care of many patients, Boston, Los Angeles, and in Florida, I also see patients in the county health department from time to time. I have seen, until this pandemic, I could not tell you someone I knew individually who I was confident was actually injured from a vaccine. Now, there are very few people that I run into who either themselves have not had a bad reaction from these mRNA COVID-19 vaccines, or who don't know someone who's had a bad reaction from these vaccines. They are terrible vaccines. I want to also acknowledge something else. Some of the reason that there hasn't been enough discussion about these mRNA COVID-19 vaccines is because there's a perception among some people that President Donald Trump is somehow responsible for this. I want to make it very clear. President Donald Trump, last I checked, he didn't go to medical school. Okay, he doesn't have a PhD in epidemiology or virology or immunology. His job was to lead the nation, and he did that the best way he could with the information he had. The people who are responsible for the carnage that we are witnessing, and frankly, that whether we witness it in a way that we know or witness it in a way that is unknown, and I'm talking about people who die suddenly or die unexpectedly or for whatever reason, but they're no longer here to speak, right? So that story goes away, except in the minds of their loved ones. The people who are responsible are the people who had the training, who had the scientific training, the clinical training, the training in data to be able to know when things are risky, to be able to know how to properly evaluate new products. Those are the people who are responsible. Dr. Anthony Fauci is one of the people that are responsible. And frankly, every physician who decided to bury their head in the sand instead of facing up to the fact that the patient in front of them has some condition that could or probably was related to their vaccine injury, they are responsible. We all share, to some degree, a level of responsibility when we have training and expertise in this area. President Donald Trump is not responsible for the carnage that we have seen. He did the best that he could with the skills and the training that he has. Trying to protect President Trump is not a reason to not take care of the millions of people who have been injured by these mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. We have a duty to do that. We absolutely have a duty to do that as clinicians, as scientists. We must do what we can. It is the ultimate travesty to allow this to continue to fester in the background without adequate attention. So today I want to call on the federal government NIH to expand the work that they are doing in long COVID to genuinely and wholly include vaccine injured people, specifically people who have been injured by mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. We need to study this better. We need to fund physicians who are caring for these patients clinically and who are doing scientific work in this area. And we need to create networks that allow physicians to do what they are trained to do. And you do that by facilitating communication, exchange of data, and exchange of ideas. And it is long past time. I mean, this is a terrible tragedy that it's still happening, even though we have a change of leadership. It is a terrible tragedy. So that's what I'm calling on the federal government to do today. And with that, I want to call Dr. Pierre Corey to the podium. Thanks, Dr. Corey.
Good morning. Just want to start by saying how honored I am to be here to speak on an issue that really is, to say near and dear to my heart. It's really the central focus of my current life's work, is trying to treat the vaccine injured. And the other thing is, I'm just honored to be a citizen of Florida. And Dr. Ladapo used the word Florida-esque. And I think we should all recognize that Florida has been a leader in actually science of COVID in terms of being open, transparent, willing to ask the tough questions and provide guidance and really look at their data transparently and share it with others. They've evolved with the data. These consensuses that were created within minutes of this COVID, which is that an experimental vaccine is safe and effective. That was the mantra before any real data of long-term safety or efficacy was there, needed to be re-examined. And I think Florida has led that. They have very quickly acted in terms of resisting mandates, coercion, proof of vaccination. They even, created a statewide grand jury to look into fraud behind this, because I guarantee you there is fraud. Hard to detect and provide the evidence for, but it's there. And so anyway, I'm honored to be here and part of that. I think it's good science that's being done. It's science which is intended for the health of the public. You cannot make correct decisions unless you're fully informed. So how do you make health decisions unless you really are aware of the risks and benefits of any therapy that's being recommended or offered? And that wasn't the case in COVID. We were just simply told that everything was safe and effective, and many people were very trusting. That was their only fault, if that is a fault. And like Dr. Ladapo mentioned, I think now the people are starting to ask questions because they know that they were essentially, you could say, lied to or misrepresented. And one thing I'll say is Florida led the charge here, but Florida will never be as fast as an astute clinician. We know this stuff before any of you. Before the studies come out, before the database analysis, we know it because we see it, those of us on the front lines. I will just kind of transition. I want to say a few minutes of what I've been doing for the last few years, but 3.5 years ago, I left the system of medicine or was excommunicated, one of the two. I think it was mutual. But I went into private practice, and with the sole intent of building a specialty practice focused on the care of the vaccine injured and long COVID. I recognized that it was the greatest unmet medical need in the country. The patients were being gaslit, ignored, misdiagnosed, and there were legions of them. In my public advocacy and wherever I traveled or asked to speak, I was talking to just innumerable vaccine injured. As a curious clinician, and I like challenges, I decided to take on this disease. And I've now spent 3.5 years treating patients who are chronically ill from the vaccine. Now, without going too much into the science, I personally differentiate, I use two different terms. Vaccine injury, the way I use it, I think about that as a single organ dysfunction problem. So a stroke, a heart attack, myocarditis, an autoimmune condition, what have you. When I use the term post-vaccine injury syndrome, that is a constellation of symptoms. And although we know this syndrome called long COVID, and we're only beginning to recognize long vax, I will tell you that is what my practice specializes in. Those are new terms for an old syndrome. What we're seeing is an epidemic of a disease that has long been called myalgic encephalitis / chronic fatigue syndrome. There's 3 pillars to that diagnosis, and they're all clinical. There are no tests for this syndrome, but it's patients who present with this constellation of fatigue, post-exertional malaise, and some sort of cognitive dysfunction that we sometimes use brain fog. That's not the only thing, the 3 things they come with, but those are generally present in any patient who comes to see me. They have a whole side menu, a side list of other symptoms from sensory neuropathies, motor neuropathies, cranial symptoms, headache syndromes, tinnitus, vertigo, inflammatory syndromes, but the core is that. And the Mayo Clinic called that out in 2021 in regards to COVID, that they were seeing unprecedented rates of ME/CFS. Historically, ME/CFS has always been associated with infections. Most common is EBV or mono. Lyme disease can do it, mycoplasma can do it, but with COVID, it's immense. And here's what I want to tell you, that in my practice, we treat long COVID and long vax. 70% of the patients in my practice became ill after the vaccine. They are long vax. The vast majority of what this rest of science in this country is calling long COVID is actually long vax. And how do I know the difference? Very easy. It's called temporal association. If someone's symptoms present within days to weeks of COVID, long COVID. If it presents within days to weeks or sometimes minutes to hours of the vaccine, it's long vax. It's not that complicated to know what the trigger was. And they both share pathogenic insults, which is this spike protein. And the sadness, and I'll try to wrap up because I don't want to go too long, but the sadness is, in my first year in practice, I think the value that I brought to the patients is I listened to them. They understood that I understood them. I wasn't gaslighting them. I knew what was wrong with them, or I knew what caused their illness, and I was willing to try to treat it. 3.5 years later, I think the value I bring is immense clinical experience using a diversity of therapies where I've been able to mitigate much of their suffering and return quite a bit of functioning. Many of them became disabled. And when I say that is so many of my patients.
A doctor joining the Florida Surgeon General, who just a few moments ago called on federal researchers to expand their work on long COVID to include what they call the vaccine injured, people who may be feeling long-term effects from the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine. You heard the doctor there just list some of the concerns they have about the long-term effects of that. Now, you may remember back in May, the new Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., that's when he announced that the CDC would remove the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines from their recommended schedule for healthy children and for pregnant women. And that was a decision that Dr. Ladapo says he called it Florida-esque today, because Florida's had previously taken several actions on the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines, including back in March of 2022 when they became the first state to recommend against its use for healthy kids, and then in January of 24 when they were the first state to recommend against its use for all populations. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now, and Brooks, pretty muggy start to our Thursday here.
Oh, it sure is. It is a summertime sky. Look at this live view from Daytona Beach. Towering thunderheads on the horizon. We're going to have our fair share of them. Here's a shot from Titusville looking over the Intracoastal toward the NASA area. It's also a day we can see a few water spouts spinning up on the waters. So a heads up as far as that goes. If you're at the beach, don't be surprised if you see a water spout in the distance. Now, this is all part of a very tropical air mass that is eventually going to bring more thunderstorms to the region this afternoon. If you remember, we had that big round of rain earlier this week from that tropical low pressure system that passed over the region. That's now heading up to New Orleans, and dragging behind it, there's more tropical air arriving. We've also got some tropical air coming freshly from the Bahamas, and so what that means is that when we get into our typical afternoon thunderstorms, it is the middle of July, they're going to have a little bit more punch, a little bit more rain with them than they otherwise would. So it may actually be kind of blinding on the highways where it's raining maybe harder than you remember it raining in quite some time. Most of the action, though, today during the afternoon will be well west of I-95, probably close to the I-4 or just west of the I-4 corridor. The rain chances will start to ramp down after 8 p.m. Now, we've got a lot more rain on the way in the long-range forecast, but first off, it's time for your tropical outlook. So here's the latest. Invest 93L, that area of low pressure located near Louisiana, is slowly drifting west-northwest, and in doing so will bring copious amounts of rain to Bayou country. In fact, over a foot could fall. That after we saw pockets of rain amounting to between 8 and 9 inches in parts of our area earlier this week. That same system will be moving northward, and this is where it gets interesting, at least from our perspective. After it floods out the bayous and works into parts of the mid-south, it's actually going to start to do a loop-the-loop and come back, offering us a round 2 of heavy rain chances early next week. This is how it works. While the surface low and its identity as a low-pressure system will die out as it weakens, its core, that tropical moisture traceable by looking at humidity levels, like in this map, those dark blue and then almost cyan, light blue colorations indicating the deepest tropical humidity, that will be traceable up through Mississippi, and then it'll push east into Georgia, and then back down into North and Central Florida by the early and middle part of next week, doing a full loop around the south before it heads back over the Gulf and back toward Louisiana by the end of next week. Now, the loops like this are somewhat uncommon. Typically, moisture from systems gets ejected out into the Atlantic and carried away by weather systems. But in this case, it's trapped. In fact, some of the long-range models have this do a third loop-the-loop, coming right back around, a third round of rain, I should say, in a second loop-the-loop. And that could bring heavy rain straight through the end of July. Now, important to remember, this will not be a widespread flood event when it comes back for more next week, but it will provide the atmosphere required for spotty flash flooding, where when it rains with our typical afternoon thunderstorms, it will pour, and it will be directly traceable to the remnant moisture from Invest 93L. That is significant. I mean, look at these computer models. The spaghetti models have this go up through Louisiana, all the way up into Arkansas, loop back across Georgia, Mississippi, and Tennessee, and then all the way back down into North Florida. Now, if you look back in history, about 21 years ago, 2004, Hurricane Ivan did something very similar. Now, that was a hurricane, and it made landfall as a very strong hurricane, but it moved inland, it looped all the way back, brought rain to Florida, and then went back over the Gulf. It was known as Ivan the Terrible. Now, this is no hurricane. Totally different animal. In fact, the Hurricane Center is only giving this about a medium 30% chance to become a tropical depression before it moves onshore. But again, it's going to lose its discernible tropical circulation, tropical low pressure, and eventually its name, Invest 93L. That'll be lost, but its moisture core will be traceable as it moves all the way back to Florida by the beginning and middle of next week, producing a lot of rain for our region. One thing we'll not be in short of this month is rain. So that's the latest, heavy rain and flooding. That's your tropical update. All right, here at home today, we're going to warm up to 93 in Orlando, 93 in the villages, and about 90 at the beaches. As far as the 7-day forecast goes, that moisture is reflected in the extended outlook. We're going to actually dry out just a little bit for tomorrow and for Saturday with a 40% chance, but then we're going to ramp those rain chances all the way back up as that low does a big loop. Just incredible to see. And as I mentioned, I mean, Garrett, you've got to look back to about 2004, over 20 years ago, to see something similar. Now, tropical systems do make little loops, but I mean, on a broad scale, this is a 2,500-mile loop.
It's impressive. Quite the setup.
It really is very impressive. So we're going to get a lot of rain out of this one. So stay with us throughout the hurricane season with the Fox 35 Storm Team.
Yeah, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner. We appreciate you breaking that down for us. Thanks for joining us this morning.
You got it. Thanks, Garrett. My pleasure.
And as we go to break, here's another live look at Daytona Beach from our Hard Rock Hotel camera. Not a bad way to cool off with all this mugginess, humidity, and the heat out there on this Thursday. Keep it right here. More Fox 35 News Plus after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning. Today marks 5 years since the death of civil rights leader and Congressman John Lewis. Today, groups across Florida and across the country are marking this day with demonstrations, and they're calling it Good Trouble Lives On. That's a nod to Lewis and to him, his term of good trouble, referring to peaceful, nonviolent actions that challenge injustice. We know of a long list of events, like I said, not just here in Florida, but across the country. Here's a look, though, at the each dot representing a different event all across the state. Really a lot of different areas represented there. In our area, there was one this morning in DeLand, one's later today in Palm Coast, Melbourne, Orlando, Altamont Springs, a number of different events here in Central Florida. Just a little bit ago, I spoke with Michael Nyatt, who's the media liaison for the Brevard Progressives group that is organizing the event in Melbourne. We talked about why this is an important event and what he wants people to take away from their demonstration this evening.
Well, we'll be meeting this afternoon in downtown Melbourne at the corner of State Road 192 and Evans Road from 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We're picking this day in particular because today is the 5th year anniversary of the passing of Congressman John Lewis. John Lewis, who is, of course, one of the greats, the all-time greats, civil rights champions of this country. We feel it's entirely appropriate to be celebrating the life of John Lewis at this time in particular, when civil rights and human rights are under such serious assault by the rogue Trump regime in Washington.
And anything in particular that y'all are kind of protesting?
Well, let me just take a moment and say a few things about John Lewis. John Lewis was, in fact, a great man. He was one of the instrumental forces in the early 1960s civil rights movement. He was instrumental in the Freedom Riders movement in the early 60s in the South. He was one of the prime movers and organizers of the 1963 March on Washington, and he had a major effect on the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Over a period of 30 years serving as a congressman in the 5th District of Georgia, he was a champion of civil rights every single day. He was a man marked by great moral courage and integrity. So we honor John Lewis first and foremost on this day. With respect to the Trump administration, Donald Trump has been he's been waging a systematic, ongoing campaign of warfare against the civil rights infrastructure in this country, infrastructure that's been under development for over 100 years now. He's been systematically dismantling all the civil rights divisions of the major departments and agencies of the federal government, the Department of Education, the Department of Justice, even the Social Security Administration. He's been attacking diversity, equity, and inclusion programs within the government as well as the private sector as a pretext for attacking civil rights on the premise that DEI discriminates against white people. From a very personal standpoint, may I just tell you that as a white man, I have never felt discriminated against in my entire life. I'm well aware of the fact that I've been given enormous privilege from this society, privilege that I never asked for and I never earned. On a very personal basis, I feel a moral responsibility to make use of that privilege for the benefit of those who have not been so privileged. I'm referring primarily to immigrants, people of color, and women.
Why is today such a good day? With the tie to John Lewis, why do you think this is such a good day to kind of get that message out?
Well, it's appropriate. People will be thinking about the legacy of John Lewis on this day. We feel it's important to remind everybody of how great a man John Lewis was and the wonderful things he did for this country, and particularly for those who have been disadvantaged and marginalized in this country. It's an appropriate time to celebrate John Lewis's life because of the oppressive political climate that we're experiencing at this time.
And this comes on the heels of a large No King's Day protest there in Brevard County. What do you hope people kind of take away from this when they see you all out at the corner again this evening?
Well, we did in fact have a very successful No King's Day on June 14th. We had official RSVPs amounting to about 3,000 people. We have reason to believe that there were far more than those who actually showed up to the event. This event will probably not be quite as large since it's on a weekday and some people are not able to make it because of work constraints. But we wish to remind them once again that there is a community of people who are aware of the excesses of the rogue Trump regime, and we're doing everything we can to fight back against it. We welcome people of all backgrounds and all political persuasions, quite frankly, because we all have a stake in the outcome of what's happening in this country right now. So we're welcoming not just progressives and liberals, but also mainstream Democrats, independents, Republicans, and even some disaffected MAGA voters.
And we know your event is just one of many across not just Florida, but across the country. What do you think that shows when you see a number of these demonstrations across the country on this same day?
Well, last I heard, there are over 1,500 separate events that have been scheduled, and we may very well see more than that. What it tells me, and I think what it should tell everybody, is that there's a huge amount of grassroots support in defense of our democracy, because quite frankly, our democracy is in peril right now. The Trump administration represents an attempted fascist takeover of our democracy. We are in serious jeopardy of losing our constitutional rights. The rule of law is under assault. The Trump administration has been systematically violating the Constitution and breaking all our laws. We have to be careful of what's happening right now and do everything we can to resist. The power of the people in this country, in a democracy, is supposed to be absolute. I'm calling upon everyone within the sound of my voice to rise up at this time and say to the Trump administration, no, you may not take our democracy away from us.
Again, many of those events kind of spread throughout the day. You can find that list and that map online. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Wymer here, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Governor Ron DeSantis was in Orlando this morning speaking at the 2026 Teacher of the Year event at Rosen Shingle Creek. Here is what the governor had to say.
You know, we've upped the amount of the checks over the years. And that's, I think, appropriate. Also, with all the inflation, I mean, you kind of have to do it to make it bite. So all the finalists are getting $20,000, and then I guess another, how much for the winner tonight? $50,000. Yeah, another 50. So that's meaningful, and I'm really glad to be able to do that. And on the issue overall of teacher pay, we've delivered another increase in this budget that I just signed a couple weeks ago. So we now have earmarked $1.36 billion that goes to the school districts but can only be used for teacher salaries. You know, you'd say, like, we want more money for education, then the money just somehow disappears and doesn't end up. So we've created this categorical item in the budget where that's the only thing it can be used for. Now, we wanted $1.5 billion. Florida Senate was willing to do that. Florida House didn't want to do anything. And so that was kind of the compromise, and so it was more than what we did in previous year, but I think we can do better next year, so we'll be pushing for that, and just make sure you tell your state representatives to get with the program here. We've also continued our investments in civics education. Really important that this is something that students have access to, and part of what we've done with this Civic Seal of Excellence is let educators go in, do this course, and you get a $3,000 bonus. We've had a lot of people that have gone through that. It's really one of its kind. There's other states that have modeled after this. I mean, I had people in some other states like almost come to tears that a state was taking civics this serious. It's like, we've been trying to do this for a long time. We had to fight with the House on that. Senate and I supported it, and we ended up getting it funded. So we have more Civic Seal of Excellence, grants for the teachers that go through, as well as continue with our Civics and Debate initiative. We got every school district in Florida is now doing the Civics and Debate, which I think is really, really important, and I think it's good for these young people, especially when they have to get a subject and they have to argue maybe on the other side that what they actually would believe. Maybe you have to actually get out of your comfort zone and start seeing things a little bit differently. So that's really valuable. We've also were pleased to announce recently the improvements in grades for the 2024-2025 academic year. Florida had 71% of all graded schools, either an A or B, and that exceeds the performance of last year, in which 64% of the schools had either A or B. So that is great progress, and part of what has helped facilitate that is our movement away from the high-stakes end-of-year test to progress monitoring. Now, the end-of-year test, I mean, so much went into preparing for the test, which, a lot of it is like, it's better if you just absorb the information and then go rather than try to cram it, because I always felt when I crammed, as soon as the test was over, I forgot everything, kind of, and so that's not the best. But then it was also just the issue of if students were deficient, you get the results back, they're on summer vacation. So how are you going to be able to do that? So now with progress monitoring, you're able to do assessments throughout the school year and then have remediation. And the teachers and parents, I think by and large, have thought that that was a good improvement. And we saw really good progress throughout the school year with that. So, and there's a lot of other stuff going on. I do want to congratulate Stasi on being the new Commissioner of Education. We had Commissioner Diaz was the commissioner for, what, probably 3 years he was, and Richard Corcoran before that. They both did a great job. So there's a lot of big shoes to fill with both of them, who having served. But Stasi's been in these issues in our office for a number of years, and I look forward to be able to work with him to continue to deliver a high-quality education. And obviously, look, the state has a role in that. I mean, we set policy, we provide some of the funding, and we're happy to do that. But this education's really bottom up, and it's the folks that are there every day that really make the difference. And so while you'll hear me saying, hey, we've improved in grades, we've done this, we've done that, just know that that is not top-down driven. That was achieved bottom up. And that's why I think it's important that we recognize great teachers. And that's why we're here today. And I'm really excited to be able to recognize the educators. So in the room today are the 76 District Teachers of the Year, who are nominated by their colleagues in their individual districts for exceptional service to their students. 5 finalists of the 76 have been chosen, and the 2026 Teacher of the Year will be announced later this evening. So this morning I have the honor of recognizing the 5 finalists. So do we want them to come up here, or how do you want to do it? We'll do like a photo? Yes. Okay, who's got the checks? Right here. Okay. So Stasi will hand you the checks, and then maybe we'll just get here, and then we'll do a picture. So we've now, as I mentioned, increased the awards to $20,000 for each of our finalists. And those finalists are, and then of course the Teacher of the Year as a whole is going to get a total award of $50,000. All 76 district teachers, including obviously most of those are not going to be in these 5, but they're getting $10,000. So here are. So I will, when I call your name, please come forward and get your check. So our first Teacher of the Year finalist is Autumn Crabtree from Citrus County, Crystal River High School, culinary arts teacher, also certified in middle grades mathematics and family and consumer science. Congratulations. Shelley Teal, 3rd grade teacher at Westside Elementary School in Columbia County. She holds certification in English for speakers of other languages and is reading endorsed. She also provides after-school tutoring to students in her class and has been rated highly effective since 2013. Brandy Nicole Anderson, 7th grade civics teacher at Indian Trails Middle School in Flagler County. She's earned her AVID certification, the gifted endorsement, and the Civic Seal of Excellence. She also serves as the Social Studies Department Chair and is the track and field assistant coach. Katie Jo Harrison, 1st grade teacher in Liberty County. She earned, and junior high school in Liberty County, she earned Civic Seal of Excellence and holds certification in English for speakers of other languages and is reading endorsed. She developed the 1st grade writing rubric for grading student papers and is rated a highly effective teacher. And then finally, Mark Harrison, economics and American government teacher at Union County High School, and he has also earned the Civic Seal of Excellence. In addition to teaching, he served as a civics and debate team sponsor and Fellowship of Christian Athletes sponsor, and also serves as a school bus driver for the high school. So I want to thank all of these folks for being here. You want to do the photo? We'll do the photo. Okay, here we go. Yep. All right, well, congratulations. Enjoy tonight.
Congratulations to those top teachers, the Teacher of the Year finalists, getting those $20,000 checks from the state, and the winner, again, gets an additional $50,000 as well. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Yesterday, President Donald Trump signed the Halt Fentanyl Act. It stands for Halt All Lethal Trafficking of Fentanyl. It's a bill, now law, that permanently classifies fentanyl-related substances as a Schedule I drug. That means it's subject to the same quantity limits, the same penalties as other Schedule I drugs. Now, these substances were previously temporarily placed in Schedule I, but again, this makes it permanent. It also creates a new registration process for it to be used for research. The president held a large ceremony yesterday at the White House as he signed the bill. He was joined by a number of folks who lost loved ones to drug overdoses, many of them holding photos as they stood behind him in the East Room. Among those people, there was Jackie Siegel, who is known as the Queen of Versailles. She's the wife of the late David Siegel, who founded Westgate Resorts. She and her husband started Victoria's Voice Foundation. We've talked to the foundation here on Fox 35 News Plus before, most recently on Naloxone Awareness Day. They started that foundation after their daughter Victoria's death of an overdose. And Jackie spoke yesterday during this White House event, speaking about her personal experience with this and how a law like this will help in the fight against fentanyl.
With this bill, we are officially and permanently classifying all fentanyl-related substances as Schedule I narcotics, which is actually a very big deal. It doesn't sound like much. It's a big deal, as they will tell you, meaning anyone caught trafficking these illicit poisons will be punished with a mandatory 10-year minimum sentence in prison. We'll be getting the drug dealers, pushers, and peddlers off our street, and we will not rest until we have ended the drug overdose epidemic. On day one of the Trump administration, we declared an all-out war on the dealers, smugglers, traffickers, and cartels. Within moments of taking office, I deployed the U.S. military to our border and unleashed the patriots of ICE and Border Patrol to defend our country from an invasion. This was an invasion. This wasn't people coming in. This was an invasion of our country. I also designated the Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. A friend of mine, a longtime friend of mine, is Jackie Siegel, and her beautiful children, her husband David just passed away. David Siegel was a great developer, great developer, great guy, a friend of mine. But her children, Jordan, Jacqueline, and Drew, come from Florida. Jackie lost her beautiful daughter, Victoria, to drugs when Victoria was just 18 years old, a beautiful person. And this April, Jackie lost her sister, Jessica, to fentanyl. In her daughter's honor, Jackie founded Victoria's Voice. And I'd like to ask Jackie to come up and say a few words about her daughter, her husband, her family. She's comes from a great family, and they've been fighting this scourge for a long time. Thank you very much, Jackie.
Mr. President, it's an honor to be here today on behalf of our family, my late husband, and all of the other affected families for this important signing on this bipartisan issue. 10 years ago, when our daughter, 18 years old, passed, Victoria, she was 18, she passed away of a drug overdose. We formed the Victoria's Voice Foundation, and the Trump administration was very helpful in passing the CARE Act, which saved many lives back then, bringing out the Narcan. And we're so honored. Well, actually, when my husband passed away, thank you for the phone call and your love and support. Our family loves you, Mr. President. That day, when my sister found out of my husband's passing, she did a line of cocaine that she thought was cocaine, and it was fentanyl. So I lost both of them in the same day. And it's been a very rough time. But it's turned me into more of a fighter to carry on my husband's legacy and the other families' legacies of saving lives. And so I'm turning my pain into passion. And also, on top of this, with the signing of this important the act that you're doing, we are joining with Victoria's Voice is joining with founding fathers, and we're going to start the Angel Army. So we're even growing even more under this Trump administration. Okay. And we're going to spend the rest of our lives doing this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Very effective.
Thank you for helping me.
And this is not an auto pen, right? That's for sure. That's great. Thank you very much. It's really an honor. Very important. One of the more important things that we'll ever sign, I suspect. And thank you all for the great job. Thank you.
The Halt Fentanyl Act now law. We heard the heartbreaking story there from Jackie Siegel speaking at the White House yesterday, talking about the continued impact that the fentanyl crisis is having, not just on her family, but on far too many others. And you heard her discuss the Victoria's Voice Foundation partnering with the fentanyl fathers, starting what they're calling the Angel Army of bereaved parents who are dealing with this to try to raise awareness, to try to help other families who are going through this same pain as well. You heard her say turning that pain into passion, and those foundations doing a lot of good work. Thanks for joining us this morning here on Fox 35 News Plus. We'll be back at 2 o'clock with Florida Live, or sooner if news breaks. Keep it here on Fox Local.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Good morning to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning live on Fox Local and on YouTube. I want to let you know some of what we have ahead of us here on the show this morning. We've got a lot to cover here, including give you a live look as we anticipate a news conference beginning in Tampa here momentarily. Talk more about that in just a minute. A Florida mother speaking at a White House bill signing yesterday as President Trump signed the Halt Fentanyl Act. We heard from Jackie Siegel, who is known as the Queen of Versailles. She is the husband, or she's the wife, rather, of the late founder of Westgate Resorts, David Siegel. They are the founders of the Victoria's Voice Foundation after losing their daughter to an overdose. She spoke at the White House and for this, in favor of this bill that is now law, to permanently classify fentanyl-related substances as a Schedule I drug. We'll have more on that coming up later in the show. Governor Ron DeSantis in Orlando this morning, speaking at the Teacher of the Year event at Rose and Shingle Creek just a little bit ago. We will hear from him coming up in a little bit. We are also tracking these Good Trouble Lives On events, rallies, demonstrations across not just our region, not just the state of Florida, but really all across the country today on this 5-year anniversary of the death of civil rights leader and former Congressman John Lewis. So a number of folks trying to remember him and his legacy, and also push back against the Trump administration as well. So we will speak with one of the organizers of one of those events in our area coming up in a little bit. But we are standing by again for that news conference in Tampa. Let me go ahead and give you a live look here where we anticipate seeing Dr. Joseph Ladapo, the Florida Surgeon General, come out and speak any minute now about updated, in fact, there he is, talking about updated federal recommendations for healthy children regarding COVID-19 vaccines using mRNA technology. This is something that the federal guidance recently changed. Let's go ahead and listen into Dr. Ladapo and hear what he has to say.
Okay, great. All right, good morning, everyone. So first, I want to thank you all for being here today. And I want to also thank our speakers who've come to join us, Dr. Pierre Corey, Dr. Joel Walskog. So Dr. Pierre Corey, who is a fantastic critical care physician. I got to know him early during the pandemic. He was very notably back when people were first getting critically ill and in the ICU. Dr. Corey gave testimony at the Senate or the House, I can't remember which, and said that he was taking care of these patients and they were doing better with steroids. And Dr. Corey was, sort of ridiculed, and he received a lot of pushback for what he was saying. Months later, in fact, the randomized clinical trials showed that Dr. Corey was exactly correct, and steroid therapy for people who were intubated, people who had hypoxia with COVID-19 became the standard of care. Just a fantastic physician. Dr. Walskog, today is my first day meeting him, and he is a leader in a group called React 19. React 19 is a group that tends to the needs of the vaccine injured. Right now, there's a tragedy going on in the background, and that tragedy is that first, a product was designed too rapidly without sufficient testing, and that is the mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. Second, that product was pushed out, often forced out, and distributed with coercion to so many millions, tens of millions of people in this country and millions of people around the world, to the tune of billions of people in total. And finally, when people were injured by that inadequately tested product, the ability to study their injuries, the ability to help them, which is what is needed when you've got to